Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Usually Fixing and Tinkering, and in this episode I'm going to do things a little bit differently from what I would normally do. I'll come to you on the sofa instead of my chair and desk over there, and this time I want to have a look at something that has cropped up in the world of the Ford Focus Mark 1 community, and that is another big name YouTuber who has finally done a review of a Ford Focus Mark 1. I say finally because I've kept begging him to do something about it for years. Well, I say begging him, I've just been nagging him. And that is Matt Richardson of Furious Driving. And I keep telling him in random comments of some of his videos that I used to watch years ago, and this is going back some time because I don't watch him as much as I used to, mainly because I make my own videos these days. But mainly, why haven't you got a Focus Mark 1? You need to get one before they start going expensive. And they're still relatively inexpensive to this day. So things are okay on that side of things. So, you know, Focus Mark 1s are very easy attainable. And I'm sure Matt may get one in the future because he keeps hinting that he wanted one. And he did a review. I can't remember what car he was reviewing, but he kept saying, I've seen 3 Focuses now, Focus Mark 1s. I need to get one of them. And then I put in my comments, yes, you do. But finally, he's done a review, and he did a review on Darren's car. Darren is a member of the Ford Focus Mark 1 Preservation Club. I've called it club now, not group. And that is where it's going. And it's a wonderful example of a Ford Focus Mark 1. It's had some subtle modifications here and there. I noticed the ST170 mesh grille, the Recaro seats that obviously everybody will see. They're very obtainable, very desirable items that years ago you could buy a set for £200 top money, which was good money for a set of seats back then. You could buy a set of normal leather ones for about 100, which that's the normal going rate really. So yeah, and there's a couple of other things that I probably have noticed, but overall it is a very original car. It's had a lot of money spent on it, and it's a fantastic ambassador of the club, because at the end of the day, if you're a member, your car is representing the club every time. Every car that has the club sticker on the windscreen, if you've got a sticker on the windscreen, it represents the club. It represents Focus Mark 1, the Focus Mark 1 community, and a growing community, because now I'm finding out that members of the group are bumping into each other because they've seen another Focus with that sticker on the windscreen, and they've just put a note to say, hello, I'm from the group as well, how are you, etc. I love that. I'm finding that that's happening a lot more now. But anyway, enough of that. This is a very good video that Matt's done. It's about 18 minutes long, and I think most of you have already watched it. I certainly have. I knew it was coming out because I was tipped off that it was, so thank you, Dan, for that. You gave me the heads up and I kept my mouth shut. And now everybody else is enjoying another video in the world of Ford Focus Mark 1s. And I'm glad that Matt's done it, because it's a really good eye-opener that this is a modern classic, you know, now. And I don't care if it's an aspiring classic. Really is an insult, because it's not. It's a modern classic now. They're over 20 years old. It's just, that's the way it is. And there's a lot of cars that maybe are aspiring classics because people don't view them as such. And there's an awful lot of people that don't view the Focus in that way. But what I'm finding interesting, and what I found most interesting, wasn't actually the video. Some of you have noticed, and I mentioned it in the live stream I did, there were some factual errors that Matt made in that video, but I'm not going to nitpick about that, because it's very difficult as a YouTuber to have knowledge on all cars, and that's why personally I don't do car reviews, because there's so many things that are nitty-gritty that people know because they've owned their car for X amounts of years. There's a lot of things that I know that Matt won't know, and there's a lot of things that got picked up that certainly weren't correct. The main one that I find quite funny, actually, and you can find this anywhere on the internet, is that he said that the model, the 2-litre model, had 150 brake horsepower. 130, a bit off there. I don't know where he got that information, but maybe it was a slip of the tongue. Maybe he meant to say 130 and he said 150. I found that when I'm on camera, I can make all sorts of errors that I wouldn't normally make, and I'm thinking, damn, why did I say that? I didn't mean to say that. And that's what happens when you're in front of camera, because I tell you, driving a car and talking to the camera and then thinking about what you're saying is an extremely hard skill. So I can understand that. But the comments of this video is the most interesting. I'm going to actually look at the comments in this video, and I'm actually going to analyse what people think about the Mark 1 Focus, because Matt Richardson has over 94,000 subscribers. He's one of the biggest YouTubers, and he has a massive audience of people who are practical, not practical, people who are just casual observers of the classic car, modern classic world, and don't actually own a classic car, and don't want to for many reasons. They just enjoy old cars. So it's quite interesting because my audience, you guys are very different. I would say you're more the practical element and people that actually own one of these cars rather than just observing on the side. But some of you are. That's, you know, each their own on that one. We're all in it for different reasons. So I'm going to look at the comments now, and I'm just going to find this interesting. So let's go and take a look. Right, so first one, okie dokie. The Focus Mark 1 was shocking and changed the world. That is the video. If you've not watched that, please watch the video. That is the title. So I'm going to start with, there have been 394 comments on this video. Yeah, that's what you get with 94,000 subscribers. I think I did leave a comment personally. I left a very big comment that many of you might have seen on that video. It was liked by 19 people, so I got my words right, my facts right. But then it's very easy to say the right things when you know this anyway, automatically. So I'm very pleased that my comment was not blasted, because sometimes it gets a bit nickety when people disagree with you. But anyway, I'm going to go down to some different comments now. So first real comment, these are some of the biggest comments and most liked. When you have a comment that's liked, your comment gets bumped up to the top. That's the way YouTube works. So first time and I'm not going to say the name of the person who's doing it. I'm not doing that. That's not me. First time I drove one of these, it was just a basic 1.6, and it made my Golf GTI feel like it had 4 flat tyres and a broken suspension. It was an utter revelation. Yeah, absolutely. And somebody else has replied to that. I had a 306 GTI 6 and felt the same. That's a fantastic comment, that is, and that's one heck of a credit, that is, for someone to say that, especially about a Golf. Probably just goes to just desserts that the VW Golf Mark III, I presume that's what he was referring to, the Mark III GTI. That's very interesting. That is very interesting. So basically, in a sense, the suspension makes the car feel joined up and loose, put it that way. Loose, but in a good manner, not stiff and broken and a bit flat, as the man puts it. Great comment. I was at the Ford dealership in Derby fixing a coffee machine. On the day they got their first demonstrator, I admired it as it was unloading, and the dealer principal handed me the key and slapped the trade plates on and told me to enjoy some country roads. As I was driving a company Escort estate at the time, it was like, wow, wow, wow. And guess what my next company estate car was? Not surprising there. It must have been a complete revelation when the car turned up at the dealerships, the demonstrators. It must have been something out of, I presume, because he said a Ford dealership in Derby. That's T.C. Harrison's, that is. This one says, my mate and I had the first 2 in our company back in the day. Mine was a white 1.8 gear, did over 135,000 miles in that car, loved it. My boss's wife bought it off the lease company after the lease was up, and she kept for several years more. Handled so well and was a real well-appointed car. The gears are. So much better than the old outgoing Escort of the era. Happy days, don't make them like this anymore. Great comment. And that's actually a really good comment in the respect that many people have actually moved on their Focus Mark 1, thinking that it's at the end of the road, to only find that the car's still going several years later. I tell you what, I'd love the fact that if the original owners of my Focus ever found out that it was still going, I think they'd faint, because you'd never expect any car that you've bought And you have to get in the mind of someone who buys a brand new car. I don't know if any of you guys have bought a brand new car outright with your own money, because that was the done deal, that somebody bought my Focus. You know, the Focus that I drive, somebody bought that brand new and probably paid through the nose. If they did it on finance, then maybe they did, but I've got a feeling the car changed hands at 3 years old when the warranty ran out. So I'd love to know whether the original owners are still alive of my car, and what would their reaction be? Maybe they just don't care for the car. Just no, it's just a car, it's a tool. Makes you think, doesn't it? When I met my wife, she was driving a very early 1998 Mark 1 Focus. The one in the video is a facelift model, with the 1.6 litre engine. She took a Cloverleaf junction at 50 miles per hour and said, while I was hanging onto the Jesus handle, it could do that even faster. But she only did that when she was alone in the car. She liked my car at the time, which was a Matra Murina, oh gosh, because it had a rear wheel arch drive which pushes you through the roundabouts. She had a 3-year-old son whose first word allegedly wasn't mummy, but car. I instantaneously knew she was a keeper. Unbelievable story. And well, comparing that is a very unfair comparison, I will say that. Somebody else has put, the era when Ford were absolutely on their game, the Mark 1 KA, Mark 4.5 Fiesta, Mark 1 Focus, Mark 1 Puma, Mondeo, all very affordable, well styled and cracking fun. Great comment. Absolutely great comment. That's your golden generation of Fords. I think you've got that down to a T. I wouldn't necessarily say the Mark 1 or Mark 2 Mondeo, but actually I would, because they're engineers' cars, so maybe I shouldn't discount them. Definitely the Mark 3 Mondeo, but let's just say Mark 1, 2 and 3 Mondeos. You could include them in that. Anything that had gone before or after, no. That generation was the best. The best. A golden era. I was selling these in the early 2000s. You could get a year-old Zetec 1.65 door with 12,000 miles on the clock for £9,000 with Ford direct warranty. These sold like hot cakes. Fantastic cars. Good times indeed. I bought a 2-litre gear, brand new in 1999. I can definitely confirm people nearly had accidents craning to see what car it was. I bought a Lotus Elise in 2002 that didn't really get as admiring looks as the Focus used to get. I had that Focus for 10 years and never had to go under the bonnet. I still have the Elise and I know what under the bonnet of an Elise looks like. Yes, lots of trouble, usually serious. The Focus is so iconic to me here in America. My aunt bought one as her first car, shortly followed after my dad bought one because he liked hers. Then my mum bought one, but a wagon version. So many happy memories growing up with all the Foci in my life. Yeah, that's the biggest thing here, is that the Focus Mark 1 is a European car. It was designed by mainly a British team, but designed for Europe. But they opened it up to the American market with some adaptations to the bumpers and side indicators and repeaters and a few other things, and the engines, of course, but it was a Focus. It was a Focus Mark 1. And people in America, that's a difficult market to tap into, and they sold thousands of them. Thousands. I don't know how many that they sold in America. I've got to find out that information. It's out there somewhere, and I would like to know, because there are many of them still remaining. Depends what area, of course. As you say, it was a revelation at launch. I was always impressed by the driving dynamics. On the couple of hire cars I drove in the 90s, and the way Ford used experts like Sir Jackie Stewart to give advice on the driver experience was impressive. Great video, Matt, and how I wish manufacturers were putting their efforts into delivering good value, innovative new designs today. Regrettably, I think those days are long gone. I'm afraid they are. Nice review. The Mark 1 Focus is a surefire future classic. I have an ST170 and I love it. It's not fast by modern standards, but it's a lot more fun in the twisty stuff. Oh my goodness me. Hello, sir. How are you? I recognise your name. A Brown 5 Brown 339. If that is you, well, I'm sure because you watch me as well, so are you a subscriber to me, I presume? Good comment, really good comment. This does not look like a 25-year-old car. It still looks fresh and modern. Absolutely, absolutely. This car has a special place in our family. My parents owned 3 of these Ford Focus Mark 1s in the past, 3 of them diesel stations, and now still owns a petrol hatchback automatic. Since I was 3 years old, I have been driven in one. And now I'm almost 25, and do I own a Ford Focus Mark 1 sedan, 33,000 first owner, so this is American presumably. Bought it without thinking, and I really do love it. Probably one of the best cars ever made. Great comment, as usual. My wife had a red Mark 1 Focus with a 1.6 Zetec engine. Sadly, we had to scrap it after it failed its last MOT catastrophically. I was particularly sad to see it go as I enjoyed it so much. That is a very sad tale and a very realistic one, and it's something that, sadly, there are many people who do, unfortunately, not regret, but sad to see it go, nevertheless, without regret. I can't say the same for the Escorts of the past. Good comment this. Completely different. Lamborghini Murcielago uses the same side repeaters from the Mark 1 Focus. Absolutely correct. I knew that before, and that's quite an interesting one. If you didn't know that, Lamborghini Murcielago Ford Focus Mark 1 indicators. Go and look it up. Let me guess how much Lamborghini want for a genuine pair of them. My late wife had a 3-door 1.8 Zetec Focus that was just as playful car to drive as anything else. We had a fantastic holiday on the west coast, Scotland, in 2004, where we both wanted to drive, as the Focus driving dynamics and flowing roads of the Western Highlands combined to make for a once-in-a-lifetime road trip. I hope to be able to do that myself on the NC 500, potentially next year, with some loving enthusiasts. My gran had one from new in 2000 and only got rid of it in 2016 when she stopped driving. Nice car to be in. It was a bit different to the Volvo 340 GLE it replaced. Oh yes. It wasn't a fancy model like the Gear in the video, but being an LX it had enough plus. She had the optional climate pack, heated windscreen, heated mirrors, and now over 108,000 miles, it seems to be still on the road. It's tax tested and insured. Again, another story of how the car is still on the road. It's also the only car I've driven properly, as in the last year of ownership, my gran got me to have a go at driving it. Though on the last outing with me, and the only time with my mum and sister in the car as well, the fuel pump failed. At launch, the Peugeot 306 had set the benchmark for the small hatch handling, and was a very tough act to follow, but the Focus made it age a decade overnight. With sport suspension, it handled like it was on rails. Normal suspension, it handled like it was on rails without shaking your filings out when you hit a pothole. I had my Mark 1 from new, sold it 12 years ago, and I miss it. That's a very good comment about Peugeot 306s. They were very, very good handling cars. Well, if the Focus hadn't been quite so good, i.e. another Escort, I think they'd have run away with the competition, because despite the name and the styling, they were good cars. Very good cars. Richard Perry Jones was a genius responsible for this car. Great man, absolutely. My first brand new car was a 2002 Focus Gear TDC. I ran it for 3 years and over 100,000 miles. This is really getting repetitive, and it is just a sign of a great car, is it not, ladies and gentlemen? I adored that car. Bought a 2002 50,000 mile Gear last year to add to my collection, but made the mistake of lending it to a friend. He loved it so much, he made an offer I couldn't refuse. I would deliberately buy another one. Easily one of my most favourite cars of all time. They're so nice to drive. What a story. I think I'd have to have gone round with a gun to get it back in that case. That's just, I would never allow that to happen. Not with my own car. Whew, dearie me. Determined fella. Most favourite things about the Mark 1 Focus is the stunning layout of the dashboard and the lovely matte finish that they have on the top. Really put some thought into building these. Fantastic car. My dad bought one of these very early Focus Mark 1s in Northern Ireland. It was ordered and delivered, and he changed his mind and got a Mark 1 in blue, 3-door. I think it was a 1.6 of some description, the Sport. Yes, probably the Z-Tech. He had 3 Mark 1s in total before getting a new Mondeo. I learnt to drive in the 3rd one. Brilliant car. This is a good comment. A very coherent and striking design that has stood the test of time very well, making everything else look like 2 years old when it was released. I think a bit more than 2 years old. A definite future classic. Wouldn't be surprised if prices start to rise in the next 5 years. Give that 2 years, they're already rising. I had a pre-facelift estate, a cheap banger with 135 on the clock. Engine was sweet as, drove like new, tight as a drum, handled better than a small estate that had any right to. A fantastic car in every way. Wow. Remember it well when it came on the market. Didn't look like anything like its predecessor, the Escort. It was so modern and different than anything else. It still looks fresh. The local garage had a signal red one when it was launched. You saw it drive everywhere. People all made test drives in it. They sold a lot of them the first few years. Nowadays they are rare. Almost gone, sadly. Well, not quite, but they will be in a few years given the rate they are. I'm not surprised that the test drives were a bit busy. They probably needed a lot of demonstrators, put it that way. This is an example of Ford's new edge design being done well, as opposed to the Australian AU Falcon, which was a catastrophe of failure. That's an interesting comment, actually, because that was more of an oval badge exercise, really, not more of an edge design. Interesting one. I had the 1.6 3-door a lot. I liked it. Handled sweetly, very well made inside out. Long gearing gave it good economy. It was reliable. However, it has an Achilles heel: excessive tyre noise, very loud on a cruise. I think you've got wrong tyres. It shouldn't be making that noise. It shouldn't be noticeable. So when a good deal came up on a Mark II, I upgraded. That was the 1.8. It was a lot quicker. That was a Mazda engine. And the 1.8 Mark II is a nice engine, but something had been lost, even though in most ways it was superior, but refined, better built inside. It just didn't drive with the agility of a Mark I. The Focus had grown up, and it was less lovable. I have regretted swapping, quite frankly. I hired 2 Mark IIs on holiday with 1.6s in, and they were slower than my Mark I. Heavier car. I'd always prefer my first generation afterwards. I thought the 1.8 would change that, it didn't. Key to open the bonnet felt classier than the flimsy pull catch. Having to press a key or press button to open the boot, less good. Interesting. Very interesting thought, and probably what I do say about the Mark IIs. They were better cars in a lot of respects, but they were heavier, a bit more grown up. Dashboard's not so good, a bit more plainer looking. The styling wasn't quite right at first. They got it right later on. A sign that the facelift is definitely superior to the original design. But it's quite interesting, actually. The 1.8 was an L series Mazda engine that they used in the Mondeos as well, in the Mark II Focus, whereas the 1.8 was the Z-Tech engine. I prefer the Z-Tech engine, but still, they all have their fireballs. There was a comment in the video that Matt made about how shockingly bad Escorts were towards the end. The Mark V Escort was the worst one. Worst. They had to do a bit of a revamp, and then the Mark VI came out, which was even more of a revamp and an improvement. The Mark VI Escort was not a bad car. It was an average car, but it was completely outclassed by the 306 and the Golf, the Mark III Golf. And it couldn't compete no more. But that didn't mean that it was a bad car. It was an average car, and it still sold pretty well. And I do think that there's some case of the Focus Mark I came out because the Focus was so good in so many departments, and it was class leading. It whooped everybody. Peugeot 306, VW Golf whipped into touch. They almost made the Escort look like a shocking car overnight, and that's not the reality of the perception. It's easy to get caught on that because you've got such a great car and then you've got such an average one, and suddenly actually the average car looks shockingly bad. It looks worse. It looks abominable. They weren't. Absolutely weren't. I disagree with you about the 1.4 and the 1.6 being gutless. My brother did 95 miles per hour on the motorway. Oh God, no bother. He's in his 1.4 5-door Focus and with 3 of us in the car. That is a very good example, as much as the legality of that is concerned. They're not gutless. The 1.4 is fractionally underpowered for its size, in the size of car the Focus is. But that just means you have to work it a bit harder through the gearbox. That doesn't mean you can't obtain higher speeds. It just needs to be worked a bit harder. And it will be quite busy on the motorway, but they're not gutless. No Mark 1 engine is gutless, and it's a very, very bad comment that was. That is something that I disagree on. Well, of course, I mean, I've read through quite a few comments that I haven't even read out in this video. I mean, it could be a 3-hour video if I read all the comments. Out of 346 comments, I think probably about 5 or 6 of them are the only ones that say anything remotely negative, and I have to read out 1 or 2 of them because I find it utterly hilarious. There is so much love for this car, but there's still some people, and I've got to have a balanced argument in this video. And this guy here, they were rubbish, mate. I had a V6 Mondeo at the time, personal driver. The Zeta engine, got that wrong. It's a Zetec engine. It's never called a Zeta. It was changed very quickly, and it's not a Zeta in the Focus. Zetec was gutless, even in 2-litre form. Handling was pants. Use a key to open the bonnet. Nice online fixes for that. They had, aside from the press pushing, no redeeming features. I've got a Mark 3 CC. I think you need to go to Specsavers. And this person here says the same thing. This car has very little in the way of redeeming features. I don't know what people see in them. The styling was ugly. Oh, that's really harsh, that is. Very, very harsh. I have to say the same thing. Have you gone to Specsavers, sir? Because I think some people need it. 340 odd people cannot be wrong. There's always the odd few people that want to say entirely the opposite of what everybody else says. And beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But for some people to make comments like that, you must have had a shockingly bad example. And we do know there are examples of every single car that have ever existed to be pretty bad examples. They have problems. They left the factory where the quality wasn't checked, and many things were left to deal with, and that is not good. But you can't win them all. But as far as winning them all, I'm sorry, 396 comments. This video seems to be getting comments every second. There are people watching this right now and are commenting it right now. I've lost track of how many comments there are. If you are a Mark 1 enthusiast and you love my videos and you love this car, go and look at some of these comments, because if you own a Mark 1, you cannot be but just feel very, very delighted that you own one, no matter what condition it's in. Well, apart from the worst, I suppose. Can't have that. Because this is just truly a special car. And the last comment of the day, which redresses that balance a little bit, a couple of stupid negative comments, which are just stupid. You tell me why this car cannot be considered the greatest car of all time. I replied to that very comment just now by saying, nobody has argued against that whenever I've mentioned it. It's one of those questions, isn't it? It really is. And I'm going to end that here, because there are very, I don't know if there's any argument against that. I mean, how many cars can obtain such a loyal following? And half of these comments are usually from people who are just members of the public. They just want a car to get from A to B. They want a comfortable car, one that works, and it's pleasant to drive, good to handle, good on the fuel, pulls nicely, and is a delight to just own from day to day for whatever people need to use, whether it's, you know, painters and decorators, workhorse estates, to very plush saloon cars that will look good in any forecourt. or the 5-door hatch for bringing up the kids, or the 3-door coupe for people who don't need 5 doors, who want to look a bit more brash and maybe go a bit faster, maybe. I don't know. There is a Focus for every person, and it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, there's always one for you. And that's a very special thing. And to obtain this much positivity, it's just confirmed to me exactly what people think about Focus Mark 1s out there. There is an awful lot of undeniable respect, and quite a few of these comments are from people who've said, I'm not a Ford person, but this is a great car. And that's where I finish here, because I'm not a Ford person generically. I do like certain Fords, but I don't class myself as a Ford person. But I do happen to own a Ford Focus Mark 1. And that is where I end my relationship in terms of the breakaway from Ford. There are many cars that Ford have produced that have been great, but also there are many other manufacturers that have probably trumped Ford over the years. But this particular car trumped everyone, and it can't be beaten, not around its own age group. Take care, guys. See you very soon.